Welcome back to the show. You're watching Arise 360. My name is Kachi Ofia. Now, Lighthouse family fans were completely heartbroken when the iconic duo, about a year ago, the iconic British duo unexpectedly announced their split after 30 years. You know, they were a two-piece, Paul Tucker, Tunde Baiyewu. They had hits like Lifted, Ocean Drive, High. They announced the news last year. Now, hailing from Newcastle, the Lighthouse family's 1995 debut album, Ocean Drive, sold more than 1.5 million copies. And they were best known, like I said, for several songs. One of my favorite was High, which went to #1 in Australia. They signed to Polydor Records in 1993. Ocean Drive as well went on to be 6 times certified platinum. They were an incredible band. Here's High. Well, joining me on the show from London today, Tunde Baiyewu, the lead singer for the Lighthouse family. I'm so delighted to have you join me on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show, by the way.
Absolutely. So we have a lot to chat on, as you can imagine, because, it's just incredible having you join us on the show. There's a lot to get into. So let's start off with, Lighthouse family as a household name, as a legacy, reflecting on that incredible legacy. How did you expect that, the music will connect with audiences for over 30 years?
Well, I think when you start doing something like that, like making music, being creative, generally what tends to happen is you do it for yourself because it makes you feel good and you enjoy being creative in whichever type of creative arts you're involved in. So there was never any great expectation that Lighthouse family will become this big household name. So when a lot of those things started happening, I remember actually when they released Lifted and Ocean Drive, they had to go back and re-release them because I think they charted in the 30s and 40s. And then the record companies came back and said, oh, I think we have a lot of people that are going to the record stores and trying to get hold of those records, but they can't get hold of them anymore. So we have to re-release them. And at the time, I remember thinking, well, that doesn't make sense. We were happy that we charted at number 30, whatever it was. Let's just move on to the next song. But they were right. They re-released those songs, and then everything just went crazy. So it caught us by surprise. It wasn't, like I said before, we had no great expectations. We loved making music and writing songs, and that's what we did. So whenever you become successful on the back of that, it's just a bonus. And then that just carried on for years and years and years.
I couldn't agree more. I personally think it's a blessing, because you could get a sense of the ease and the simplicity of the music from just hearing about it. Of course, the news of the band split was a difficult one for fans to process, like myself. Again, it wasn't quite understood. Looking back, would you say that was a very difficult decision for you to make?
Not really. Mm-hmm. We got signed 93. Mm-hmm. And so we carried on for like quite a number of years. And there's always that proverbial saying, all good things eventually come to an end. That's just the natural, it's just the natural progression of things. It doesn't mean we'll never make another Lighthouse family. We probably might do, or maybe not. But I think it got to the point where I think the initial spirit with which we came together and started that band, it was just not there anymore. And so I think the natural progression for both of us was just to go off and do something else. But we had a good time, and Lighthouse family is still out there. I'm driving the car sometimes with my kids in the car, and on the radio, Ocean Drive will come on, or Lifted, or High. And I kind of like sheepishly just smile to myself. So Lighthouse family is still out there. But it's just natural that everybody kind of, when you feel that you want to explore other areas and do other things, it's a natural progression to move on to and try to do that.
I couldn't agree more. I feel like 30 years, that's a whole lifetime. That's an adult that has lived through the baby years, the teenage years, early 20s. You know, so 30 is a big, big deal. Of course, when it comes to your music, I think it also sends that same message because the Lighthouse family songs have a unique sense of hope and togetherness, you know, just an interesting dynamic where you listen to the song and you automatically just feel lifted. So maintaining that creativity, that creative unity over time, you know, would you say it was a challenge, it was easy? What was the sustainability factor that remained? Because that's something that's true through the songs.
Yes, and I would say for me, it was very easy. And I think the main reason for that was because, I mean, I was born in London, here in London, but from the age of about 5, I relocated back to Nigeria. So I grew up in Lagos as a kid. And you know, us Africans, our culture and our heritage, there was always a very strong, like you used the words, hope. Really, it's a spirituality, actually. If you think about Lighthouse Family, in essence, it's quite a spiritual thing. And that comes from my background, I think. Growing up in Nigeria, in Lagos, I was a part of the choir as a kid. So we used to go to church, and I remember whenever we'd sing songs in church, I used to wonder, I never really believed people actually wrote those songs. I just used to think, wow, this is such a beautiful hymn. Where does it come from? And so from a very young age, it was always something that I wanted to do. It came naturally to me. Mm-hmm. So throughout my time as part of the whole Lighthouse Family setup, writing those sort of songs that like had to do with hope and the human condition it was the only thing I knew how to do. I wouldn't know how to go off and write a sort of like a very typical funk or Afrobeat song, for instance. The sort of stuff that Lighthouse Family does was what I kind of grew up listening to, and it's part of my heritage, it's part of my culture, and it is still part of the music that I continue to make even today.
Exactly. You know, speaking about that, music that you continue to make now, obviously you're on your solo journey. So would you say that is relatively different from what you've been doing? I'm not sure, but tell me about it.
Well, okay. So there are similarities. So what I would say is, I mean, I grew up, as I said, in the 70s in Lagos. And I remember back then we used to listen to people like Bill Withers and James Taylor, Marvin Gaye. So this like troubadour songwriters. And I've always wanted to make those sort of like records. So what had happened was, just over the last few years, I'd actually made that record. But I wasn't sure what to do with it. You know, we recorded the album in Brooklyn, in New York. Had all these amazing musicians, made the record, and then I sat on it for a while because I wasn't quite sure what to do with it. But it was one of my guilty pleasures, if you know what I mean. So I'd walk around, listen to it, and just enjoy it. And then suddenly, out of the blue, a call came from a friend in South Africa he asked me the question, said, oh, would you fancy kind of doing some duets with other African artists or South African artists? And that was when the light bulb just went off in my head, and I thought, that's exactly the kind of thing I would love to do. So we then moved forward and sort of started fishing for a lot of these different African artists to collaborate with me on the record. So in essence, I would say this record could easily be a Lighthouse Family record. But I have the advantage of being able to explore the African angle, which has always been something I've wanted to do, but just never really had the opportunity to do. You know, when you're in a setup like Lighthouse Family, there's more than one person making those sort of executive decisions as to who else to have on the record. And if everybody doesn't agree, then some of those ideas just fall by the wayside and they never materialize. Mm-hmm. But this time around, because it's my record, I'm making it myself, I have the luxury of being able to pick and choose. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we've done. I'd say, if you like Lighthouse Family, there's no doubt about it, you would like this record. But the added bonus is, we have all these, I've never made a record before where I duet or feature with other artists. So it's just such a beautiful thing for me to be able to do, and an honor to be able to cherry pick and have all these other African artists feature with me on the record. And I have to say, I'm just so proud of the record, and I listen to it myself every day.
You know, I'm in a way, I'm also, you know, grateful for that for you as well, because I would say not every artist really gets to explore different sides of the industry in one lifetime. You know, for most artists, you get in the industry and you kind of do the same thing up until when, you know, maybe you just don't do it anymore, or, you know, you just kind of, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
But I think you've really gotten to experience the Lighthouse family, and then now you're on this new journey that I can tell you thoroughly enjoy. And even the music, it feels a lot more introspective. So would you say, in a way, this is it's like a search for something with this new path that you've, you know, forayed on now with your music, like maybe searching for something within yourself or within your roots here in Africa? Because like I said, this new direction feels a lot more introspective.
Yes, absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head. It definitely, in terms of exploring other areas, and in particular for me, exploring my African roots and heritage, this is it. This is the way. I mean, I made my very first solo record I made years ago. And on that record, I mean, I sing some of the songs. I even sing in Yoruba, which is my native tongue, because I speak Yoruba. But being able to explore it on a record like this definitely is always something that I've wanted to do. So I would say it extends beyond what we were able to do as Lighthouse family. And it's just a lot of fun, really, because at the end of the day, that's what music is all about. You know, there's something about music. I always refer to it as a sort of like a form of escapism. You know, we know what it's like. You know, everybody goes through the grind of the 9 to 5, and life can be difficult, especially over the last few years with all the things that have transpired, COVID, Brexit, you name it, and a lot of the things going on in Africa as well. So music serves as a little portal that you can just go in and pay attention, listen, and escape and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, there are other ways of doing that. Some people do that through dance. Other people do it through cooking. Some people do it through painting. Some through just reading. But music is definitely one of those. And I think making this type of record, this is what my dream is and my hope is that people will be able to enjoy that guilty pleasure of listening to a record, beautiful songs on it, but also hear a lot of African artists in probably a way that you might not have heard them before. I mean, there's only so much you can do. You know, Africa is a big continent, right? And on an album of, say, maybe 10 tracks, there are only so many people you can put on. But the beauty of it is, like, once you've done it once and you see the end results, and it's like something you're happy and proud of, it gives you the opportunity to be able to do it again. So we already have in our heads ideas for the next record and how to go about making that. But really, the whole point of it is for you to just enjoy it, listen and have a good time, escape somewhere else.
You know, Tunde, I could say I'm almost jealous of you because you're really having fun. That's what I'll just say. You're having a ball, you know, because not only are you now exploring something new, but you are just, you know, you're getting to interact in ways and sounds that is not limiting. A lot of artists work under the pressure of, I have to make a certain amount of numbers of streams and people have to like it. What if they don't like it? What's going to happen? But I could tell that you're not so concerned, even if it does matter, but it's not, you know, it's not limiting you. Genre, whether it's Afro pop or Afro beat or any other genre within Africa, I think it's something that, you know, you just want to explore. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I think you are right about that. That point you made about not putting yourself in a box is very important, because eventually things can end up becoming a bit stale. So it's always nice and I think it's imperative actually as a creative to find other areas that you can delve into and explore.
Yeah.
And this angle of taking these songs, both some original songs and some cover songs, and just like inviting other people to join in with you and see how they would express it. I mean, I always say the element of surprise is very important when it comes to something creative.
Yes.
And when you hear something like another artist's interpretation of one of your songs, and they bring their DNA and that African thing to it, and it, especially for me, when it catches you off guard, you think, oh wow, I never would have thought of doing it like that. It's surprising. That's part of the fun. It's part of the enjoyment of it all. So yeah, I am definitely having fun, and you know, we want to continue doing that as long as we possibly can.
You know what? I'm hoping that you do. I really am, because I really think creativity should be enjoyed. You know, yes, it comes with its pressures, but we should try to make it as fun as possible. Now, before I let you go, what would you say you want to leave us? You want your fans, whether, you know, the fans that are now coming to become your fans or the fans who have followed you from Lighthouse family, but that legacy that you always want them to remember, that this is who Tunde Baiyewu is, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, this is what I represent with my music. Of course, with Lighthouse, it's strength. I can say that for free, but has it changed for you, or has it evolved? You know, has it become wider?
Yes. Well, I would say it has become wider. I think it has evolved. And I think when people hear this record, hopefully that's what they'll get out of it. And like, I also really hope that the younger generation get to know some of these songs, which they probably are not that familiar with, and hear them in a new light, in a modern way. One of the things that I kind of feel, I know like Africa at the moment has become such a large voice in the sort of music industry in particular, and like you can see everybody's trying to get a piece of that action. But I think when it comes to African music, you know, there's so many other, it's multi-dimensional. And what I would hope people will get from this record is be able to hear Africans, and I'm one of them, in a totally different light, in a way that you probably would not expect, but at the same time come out of it and go, wow, that is a thing of beauty. I never, you know, African music is not just about Afrobeat or Amapiano and stuff like that, and I love all that stuff, that's all great, but there's so much more, you know, and hopefully the younger generation and the future generation will be able to get that from this record.
You know what, I think that is, I mean, thank you for that. You know, these are some of the things we've been saying and trying to say. So it's not just a one-day journey, it's a continuous one. And that's the beauty about music, you know, the fact that you can always go back to it, you can always find it and say, wow, I've never heard this before, but it sounds really, really nice. And I think in terms of like, you know, even recognition globally, the type of music you create is a constant reminder that we're more than one genre within Africa, and people need to start to recognize that. So thank you so much for that, Tunde Baiyewu. I'm really excited for this, so congratulations, and I'm looking forward to, you know, many, many, many more great songs from you. This has been an epic conversation. Thank you for joining the show.